Okay. Thank you so much, Kayla, for
Hello.
that introduction. And once again, good morning and good afternoon, depending on where
Oh,
you might be
it's
today. Sorry?
sorry. Okay. Yes, we are good to go.
Great, great. So I was saying good morning and good afternoon to our participants today, depending on where they are, to the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce International Women's Day webinar on the topic creating opportunities, amplifying voices to accelerate impact. Like Kayla said, my name is Edwina Atasunu, and I am the Executive Secretary for the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce. And before I introduce our guest speaker, I just want to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the chamber. So the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce is one of the vibrant business chambers in Ghana. We have about 120 local and foreign companies cutting across all sectors of the Ghanaian economy. Our chamber's mission is to promote trade, investment, and business collaboration between Ghana and Canada. We achieve this through unparalleled networking opportunities, increased visibility, and advocacy of Ghana's economic advantages. The Chamber strives to promote the interests of its members and conveys their views to decision makers in industry and government. We pledge to work tirelessly to create opportunities that add real value to our members through publications and events. Now, as a business support organization, we build capacity and we endeavor to provide a forum for exchange for accurate information for our members on the business environment in Ghana and Canada. So, if you are looking for a platform to network and grow your business to the next level, join the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce. Check us out on our website at www.canada-gh.org and on all our social media handles, or contact the Secretariat on +233 26 48 817. Call us today. We will be waiting for your call. So I want to believe that we'll be getting a lot of calls from today's webinar. And without wasting too much time, I want to briefly introduce our guest speaker for today's webinar. I'm excited because this woman is phenomenal. And I just, attended one of her events yesterday, and it was amazing. So our guest speaker for today's webinar holds a doctorate in leadership and management from the University of Maryland. She is the founder of CASA Foundation for International Development, and she is a partner at ENFCAP Corporation. She serves as a consultant and advisor to entrepreneurs, to the youth, to women in Canadian small business sector. Now, as president of CASA Foundation, she supervises the general management of the organization, and she has responsibility for the external and done relationships committee of the board. Now, CASA Foundation is one of the 30 organizations approved by the government of Canada to manage the government's Black Entrepreneurship National Ecosystem Fund. It's a $100 million fund to support the development of Black businesses in Canada. You know, I can go on and on and on. Our guest speaker is an amazing woman. She is a mother, she is a wife, and she is in industry. Ladies and gentlemen, and because I see a few gentlemen online as well, please let's show love as we welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Olutoyin Oyelade. Doctor, your audience, please. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. I hope you can hear me. I'm trying to unmute myself. I believe you can hear me now. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Edwina, for your warm welcome and your kind introduction. Thank you so much. It's really appreciated. I appreciate that. Thank you. Uh, good morning again, everyone. Good morning, because it's morning in Canada, and I'm speaking from Canada this morning. So good morning. Thank you again for joining us. And then good afternoon again to all our constituents in Ghana and across West Africa, wherever you're joining us from, whether it's morning or evening. Thank you again for joining us this morning. And you're really, really welcome. You're really, really welcome. I wanted to start by saying Happy International Women's Day. Of course, as you recall, International Women's Day fell this particular year fell on a Saturday, the 8th of March. So it's really a pleasure to join you here celebrating it on a weekday, because I do know that in most parts of Canada, we actually also, where I'm speaking from, we actually started the celebration actually yesterday, as Madam Executive Secretary kindly alluded to. And we've been having fun, haven't we? So it's really
Yes,
good. Yeah, it's really good, and it's really great to join you this morning and continue the celebration. All right. Quick acknowledgement from my side of Madam Linda Vasnani, who is the president of the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce in Accra, Accra in Ghana. And then, of course, our own Madam Edwina Atasono, who is the executive secretary of the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce. Esteemed board members of Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, and all the women in the room today. And I understand there are some men there too. So thank you again for joining us. It's such a pleasure. It's such a joy to join you this morning. I'm indeed deeply honored to be here to join all women commemorating the International Women's Day. And I must quickly say to you that as we go along today, chatting and discussing, although I've been asked to make to provide this speech, at some point, I expect that we'll go in, we'll make it as interactive as possible. Interactive because I expect that a lot of us, do have a fair idea. And of course, we want to contribute. So we'll make it as interactive as possible. All right. So from my thoughts, I would say that the International Women's Day usually, it's that time of a year when, a lot of organizations begin to celebrate women. They want to acknowledge a lot of the women in their lives, in their organizations, in community. And I know that it's kind of cliche when people begin to talk about, oh, women, they are the ones that move the needle, they're the ones that make things work and happen. But a lot of these commendations, acknowledgements, they happen around, the International Women's Day, once we get close to that particular period. But then I wanted to quickly say that at this particular time, although it is symbolic, although people talk about making symbolic gestures, celebrating all of these types of groups of women, advertising, is usually focused on the gender, like their diversification in their organizations, and talking about the great accomplishments and achievements of women all across the globe. But then instead of fulfilling these expected norms, as most organizations are known to do, I wanted to say to us in the room today that women should be celebrated every day, not only because of the sheer, the work that we do, the volume of work that we do, but even because we are the ones that make things happen, like in the home, in the marketplace, like the neck they call us. But of course, we're also the head, at the end of the day, because we're moving the needle and pushing beyond boundaries on all fronts. So again, I don't know, as many of you as know how to use the emojis on the Zoom link, if you do know how to do that, a shout out to all our women again this morning, acknowledging ourselves, patting ourselves on the back, clapping and clapping and clapping. If you know how to use the emojis, please feel free to use them this morning and celebrate the women. I know I have a few members of my team in the room, so and I see your names there. Yeah, so if you could do some of those flowery stuff and put them in the chat box, that would also be great, for people to see. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone. All right. Now, it is indeed commendable, though. I must acknowledge all the organizations that celebrate their women, all the families, all the communities. Commendable that we're able to do this from time to time. However, there is a dire need to fast-track the needed corrective and remedial policy action to address the pertinent issues that continue to limit the huge potentials of women in business, of women in the workplace, and of women in the marketplace. Sometimes some of our women wear triple hats, like they're in business, they're in the workplace, they're in the marketplace, 4 hats sometimes. They're managing families, managing their homes, 6 hats sometimes. They're managing children, they're managing families, grandparents, and so on. And so I'm sure you understand, and I speak the minds of a lot of the women in the room today when I say, indeed, women are very tough and they can manage it all. Sometimes they can have it all. Sometimes they've been faced with challenges, and who hasn't been faced with challenges? But then what is important at the end of the day is that we make it happen, and we make it happen for community, for family, and for the workplace. So right now, I say to you, achieving genuine equality for women on all strata demands sustained commitment from both the public sector and the private sector. Why? Because they need to shift and review policies and increase the fortified systems, support systems that we require, even for this current generation of women, emerging leaders, people evolving into the marketplace.
Network is calling.
Can you hear me? I'm not sure. I think I had a few comments. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
Yes, we can.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
All right. All right. So I was saying that there is a need to shift policy, review policies, and increase the fortified support systems right now and in the near future, even for the generation of women coming, behind. At CASA Foundation, we aim to continue our advocacy in this regard and facilitate the advancement of women, youth, and business founders looking to start, to scale, and to transform or expand their businesses across vertical industry sectors or beyond borders. My belief really is that the celebration of women is an everyday occurrence. It should be. That is what would make us motivated, as I'm sure a lot of our women businesses will agree with me today. I recognize that there are diverse women in the room for sure. I mean, after all, this is the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Business, and most of us are doing business across the globe. So we're looking not only for partners, we're looking for influencers, we're looking for people that will hold our hands and lead us into the next room of opportunity. And so in alliance with the theme for this particular speech for this afternoon, advising us to create more opportunities and to amplify the voices of other women. So you're already sitting at the table. How do we do that? You're already sitting at the table. You're ensuring that you're bringing the people coming behind you all to sit around that same table, or at least other tables where you believe they fit into. That's the way to amplify some of the voices. And we will talk about that as we go on. Let me acknowledge the contributions of all the women in the room again, because we not only recognize their contributions, but we give credit to all the women across the globe, and particularly the women of Ghana, the women of Canada, who are represented in the room today, not only because of your incredible work, the work that you do on a day-to-day basis, but also because of your sheer guts, because women are gutsy. A lot of things that we do, sometimes you can't even imagine that anyone would try, but we're very gutsy and we go on and do it. And so I want to acknowledge that your guts, your grit, and your grace, the sheer grace that women bring to the table, they bring to the room. Everybody, they're trying, they're struggling. A woman is very emotional. We tell ourselves we are, but then we are the ones that have been entrusted with birthing new dreams, even from the natural occurrence, the way God set it up, even to other bigger dreams. Without a woman, there is no doing anything positive, because once you have a woman and entrust it to a woman's hand, they make things happen. And that's really great. And so we acknowledge you again this morning. Now, as we begin to talk about creating opportunities and amplifying the voices of other women to accelerate impact, because that is exactly the theme for the International Women's Day 2025. It is to accelerate action. And what does that really mean? How do we accelerate action for women, particularly when they've been doing a lot of work and they are known to have the capacity to do so much more than what they currently do? I will start this morning by quickly reviewing, just a bit of statistics. I think I like a bit of statistics because it helps us set things in motion. Where are we? As we celebrate ourselves this morning, as we give ourselves a pat on the back, we know for sure that indeed it is a celebratory, period for us. But then, of course, we must be celebrated every day. But where are we? What are the gaps? A lot of us, we know what those gaps are, what the challenges that we've been faced with. We do know. But it's important to reiterate them because without understanding the full import of the challenges that we're faced with, most likely we will not be able to address those challenges. And so I would say again this morning, because this is targeted specifically at Ghana and then every other woman across the nation. So Ghana has, I must reiterate, Ghana has one of the highest rates of female entrepreneurship and women in business in the world. The United Nations reports in 2021 that 37.2% of business owners in Ghana were women. Women in business or entrepreneurship have made fundamental impacts in the social economic development aspects of the Ghanaian history. Professor Afua Ocho, who started with food processing and pioneered micro-lending in Ghana to stimulate the businesses of other people, to the works of Aisha, who founded the Ashiba enterprise, which supports women and jobs in her she butter business, and Charlotte Ofobiri, who sustained businesses and other businesses by them in the art of interior decoration, furniture, and design. We read about all of these women, and we're proud that these types of women are representing us, people like us in the room today. There's also the story of Ruka, who founded the Jamula Farms, a poultry business that creates jobs for young people in Ghana. Joel Eisen, the co-founder of Hive Earth, which builds eco-friendly homes in Ghana. These are huge strides, giant strides of Ghanaian women that started out, to impact their community by creating, by building. And I think that actually reiterates, it reiterates that fact that I made earlier when I said that women are known to birth big dreams. So they're not just birthing dreams for themselves, they're birthing dreams that would actually impact other constituents within our communities, from youth groups to other women like themselves. However, despite these giant strides of women, there are many gaps. The number of businesses that have grown over the years has continued to taper down. And so it's important for us to note that, because women-owned businesses remain at the micro level. So they create a lot of businesses. The businesses are, they are many now at 37.2%, for instance, but they are at the micro level. And what do I mean by that? The soft businesses. And it's important, and it's okay to start at the micro level, from our homes or, from our storefronts, the shops, in the marketplace where we found ourselves. But then they've not been able to expand those businesses. The volume of the transactions remain very low. So it's important for us to reiterate that this morning, because then, of course, when we set that tone for ourselves, then we're able to move forward and say, what do we do about this? So that's the point. We've done very well. We're increasing the numbers, but the content is low. The volume is low, and we're keeping it at micro level, meaning we're doing business perhaps within Ghana, perhaps within Accra, Tema, and so on. So people are going and shipping across, just within the ports that we're familiar with, but we're not going outside of the border. We're not going beyond the borders as we're expected to do. We're not in international trade. We don't have business partners in Canada, as many as we would like to. A few women have, but generally speaking, across vertical industry divides, we do not. And that's why the Ghanaian businesswoman, as much business as we do, generally speaking, will not be said to be a major international trader. So I just wanted to bring that up to our attention. Of course, there are many challenges. Of course, there are many cultural issues, policy challenges, financial challenges, so many stereotypes, biases, prejudices. But it's important that we find a way to surmount those challenges. After all, life is always about challenges that we're surmounting at one point or the other. Now, I quickly refer again to statistics. In 2024, Statista indicates that women are 50%. You know, the Ghanaian population is made up of 50% women. So we're half of the population, but only 3.9%, 3.9% of Ghanaian women are employers of labor. Meaning that if you had 100, you know what I mean? Like a fraction, just shy of 4%, are able to employ people in jobs. So when you look at that entire population, that's so huge. Now, the figure was about 5% in 2019. But then, as we all remember, the pandemic happened. And as you all know, women were disproportionately affected by the impact of the pandemic. Their businesses shut down. They had to take care of family first before going back to the business spaces. And so from the figure of about 4.5 or about 5% in 2019, the women business owners have been struggling since, the pandemic, abated, and they've been struggling to get back to the pre-pandemic position of hiring at least 5% of the labor, But these are issues that we need to deal with. On a day like this, as we celebrate ourselves, we remind ourselves again of the work that still needs to be done. UNECA, that's the United Nations Economic Commission on Africa. It reports again in April 2024 that women hold about 17,855 jobs in the whole country. And that unlike their male counterparts in politics, when you look at about 33% of males represented at the national level in politics, in national politics, only 14% women are represented in national politics. I'm talking about members of parliament at that very high level. About 14% women are there. And about 15% in cabinet, when you talk about people who actually take decision at the executive level of government. And so if the whole of Ghana, for instance, has 50% populated by women, and only 15% are represented to take decisions, when the remaining 85% is taking decisions for the generality of the population, then that's a major gap for us. This must be covered. Of course, I know that there's a new government in place as of 2025. So we're not certain what the ratio is now. I'm speaking about 2024, but perhaps a few of our government officials are in the room. That's a message to take back to our esteemed Excellency John Dramani Mahama, saying that the gap must be breached. The gap must be breached. When you look at a few other countries, including Canada, because this is Canada, Ghana Chamber of Commerce, the figure is different. And there are commitments that have been made that the gap must be breached. And it's called the 30-50 ratio. We know that the gap has been, the gap has been there all these years, but Canada made, a major commitment called the 50-30 challenge, that wherever, across vertical industry sectors, across public sector, private sector, academia, business, it must be a representation of 30-50 or 50-30, whatever you want to call it, because they need to bridge that gap. So 14% to 85 is still a huge gap, and it must be bridged. Women in business are also unable to upgrade their goods into the international markets, like I alluded to earlier. Females are less likely to export their goods than their male counterparts, not only because of limited access to funding, really, but largely due to the time-consuming trade procedures and documentary requirements that may affect women more than men. Women are less able to get inputs and materials that they need to compete in the overseas markets. Now, of course, these challenges are not only limited to Ghana. These challenges are also reflective of what goes on across the globe. I'm sure a lot of the West African countries are still in this situation for sure. In some of the other fast-growing nations, of course, we call a large portion of West Africa frontier markets in development. But then when you look at the developed nations, a lot of these bridges are being, a lot of these gaps are being breached. And one of the ways that some of the Western nations do that, taking again the example of Canada, you have a lot of programs. It's driven by policy action. And the reason it's driven by policy action is because statistics has shown that when women are entrusted with businesses, with funding, with the resources they require for mentorship and so on, they are able to mobilize a lot more people into the room in terms of taking care of family, taking care of other constituents, taking care of the people that work with them, paying salaries. Men do the same, don't get me wrong. But the concentration level is different. Men have a lot of things they're grappling with, a lot of things to settle. Women focus on the target at hand. You only need to entrust them with it, and they focus on it. And men have a lot of distracting things culturally that they are doing. It doesn't make an excuse. It's not an excuse, but what they are saying in terms of that particular statistics, particularly the one coming from the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, located at the Toronto Metropolitan University in Canada, indicates that women have a way of producing results faster if they have the right resources. So why not devote a lot more to them so that they can generate and create more incomes, more profits, and so on. There's also empirical evidence that venture capitalists ignore a lot of the women communities. The ventures are there, the ideas are there, but they ignore them because they believe that the statistics is showing that 6% of them only get the financing from venture capital. So if it's 6%, why don't I concentrate all my efforts on the 94% and get money faster instead of wasting too much time by devoting funding to women? So all of these statistics are there for us to check out. I just spoke about the ones in Canada too. And so that was why by policy action, the federal government initiated the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, specifically dedicated to research on women. How do women do in the marketplace? What kinds of results are they generating? And how can we support them? And so that particular knowledge hub provided the data that now necessitated what you now call in Canada today, the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy. The Women Entrepreneurship Strategy has created several initiatives called the Women Entrepreneurship Loan Fund, the Women Entrepreneurship Training Fund, and so on, where women now have access to 5,000 to 250,000 from time to time, because not everybody needs 500,000. Not everybody needs 1 million. Some do. Some, they're okay with 25,000 just to get started. And so that loan fund is a dedicated federal government program for women to thrive. So that's the type of policy action I'm asking, perhaps for consideration by government initiatives and advocates in Ghana. So why is it important to accelerate action? Why do we need to create opportunities now that we understand more of the problems or the challenges, as I might say? Why do we need to create the opportunities? Why do we need to amplify the voices of other women? I say here and try to answer a few of these questions also that entrepreneurship and the creation of rapid growth businesses is now a critical success factor. You know, like we say in the private sector when we're doing our retreats and analyzing our figures on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, whenever we get to do those, it is a critical success factor for any economy. All women ecosystems must be supported, whether you're in Ghana, whether you're looking to do business in Canada, or whether you're in any part of West Africa, for instance. All equity, we call them equity deserving women, like in Canada, Black women, minority groups, equity deserving women, whether they are Black, whether they're people of color, whosoever, they deserve to have rapid growth in entrepreneurship or in the businesses that they lead. This is not only the fastest route to economic freedom, it will also help women to contribute effectively to the national GDP in Ghana, for instance, in Canada too. And then it gives us a seat at the table. Because entrepreneurship, when you begin to do your business, you find that you're able to speak to more constituents, you're selling to people, you're speaking about your product, you're advertising rapidly, you feel more confident. And so some of this, when we practice entrepreneurship, whether we're within the organization and we're holding forth a particular unit of that organization, taking decision for the organization. Those ones are called intrapreneurs, shaping planning, making sure that the organization works effectively. That gives you a seat at the table. Whether the seat is leadership or it's a board position, it takes you far. It takes you far in the journey of your career. It gives you visibility before partners and groups that you never thought possible. And it gives you a voice to speak. So today we talk about amplifying voices. It gives you a voice around the table. Keep in mind again, ladies in the room, and of course the gentlemen that are joining us, if you don't have a voice, you really can't speak for other people. So today we speak about amplifying the voices of women, but you can only amplify the voices of women when you have a voice of your own. So it is important that women find their voices to speak, to become intrapreneurs and business leaders within the teams they manage within the workplace. And how can this happen? One of the ways where we can draw, from the theme of this year's International Women's Day, accelerating action, is one of the ways we draw some support for women is to say that rapid support for existing businesses, rapid support for women, creating an enabling environment for women and development of new opportunities for women. Perhaps maybe they're just looking to get into the workplace or the marketplace, as the case may be. Having some support for them in various ways is critical. It is important. It's a key area that business leaders and organizations must focus on. For instance, for a woman or for women groups to break free from the stereotypes that have limited them thus far, it would take a major policy action. And that's why the people who make such policy actions, whether they're women or men in any organization as leaders, are called change makers. They're called the difference makers. They make the difference in the lives of the women they serve. And so more women are turning into entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship within the organizations they serve as a solution to some of these challenges highlighted above, because they see that the only way they will find their voice is if they are solving problems. They become solution providers within the organizations that they manage or in the marketplace, depending on the places that they're sent to. After all, whether as homemakers or whether we're within communities or associations or groups like the Chamber of Commerce or the Canadian Ghanaian Chamber of Commerce, the truth is that the more issues we solve, the more challenges we address, the more lives are changed. The more jobs we create, the more of a role model you become to somebody. The more people we mentor, the more people look up to us if we give the right mentorship. And don't get me wrong, ladies. Of course, today is a day of celebration, so I really don't want to make it about the challenges. But of course, if we're going to accelerate impact, if we're going to create opportunity, then we've got to discuss some of this. Because if we understand what the gaps are, then we find solutions to quickly accelerate and surmount those challenges. So, a few questions that we need to ask ourselves. For some of us, we were raised in Africa. Yes, we're in other parts. Some were raised in Asia. Wherever you were raised, you will recall again from our moms, our mothers, to the grandmas and so on. They were all entrepreneurs. They found a way to market and make it work. They sent us to school from the proceeds of their little sales in the market. The challenge and the call to action this morning is that that's where those folks stopped. That's not where we must find ourselves at the micro level, because they started there. Most of them stopped there. We must take it a notch higher. And that's the call to action this morning or this afternoon. From micro lending to macro. And not everybody is called to do the macro part. You want to remain in your region? That's fine. You want to remain in your province? That's fine. You want to remain in the city of Accra? That's also fine. However, what is not fine is to have an opportunity to expand your business, to expand your product, to fine-tune your product, to create partnerships across the region or across international markets, and refuse to do so. because of these limitations that I articulated earlier. It's important that we're able to surmount those challenges because we know that we can actually do it, not because we're limited by the barriers that we see all around us. And some of the ways to do that, and I'm going to ask as I begin to wrap up now, how can we practically create those opportunities and amplify these voices? We ask ourselves again. So I have a few examples. In business, for instance, the general statistics indicates that small and medium-sized enterprises are always everywhere, all nations. They are the economic engine of any nation. In Ghana, for instance, SMEs constitute 92% of the enterprise in Ghana. And they contribute 70% to the GDP of Ghana. So, and I'm sure a lot of you may find that funny because perhaps you were thinking it was, the extractive sector, mining, petroleum, oil, and all of those. Those ones are there. But the SMEs actually create 70% of the GDP of Ghana. And in Canada, it's the same story. It's just that it's a notch higher, 90% in Canada. That's why governments that are well discerning never, ever trivialize or joke with SMEs. They pump money into them. I quickly cite an example during the pandemic at the start of 2020, 2021, 2022. The government of Canada initiated what you call the CEBA loan for only small businesses, 60K for every small business. They called it a loan, but it was one of the stimulus packages. And I'm sure you understand what I mean by that, just to stimulate economic activity. And the reason they did that was they realized nobody was buying and selling anymore due to the pandemic. Everybody was now folding their arms and said, one of the ways to quickly pull up the economy from its depressed state was to avail 60K to only small businesses at 0%. That's why we called it a stimulus package. For a period of 4 years, throughout the pandemic and even post-pandemic 1 year. And then if you pay after the pandemic 60K, you pay back only 40,000, you get the 20 balance on it. That was the own package to stimulate economic activity. These are policy actions, and in business, this has to be done to reflate the economy, because there's a lot of depression now everywhere, right? So we know this, and it is imperative that if we must accelerate action for women, then encouraging women to create their own businesses or encouraging them to create their own initiatives within the organizations where they work, so that they can own the initiative, they can run with the initiative, and then they can impact positively the whether it's the revenue, whether it's the impact of that organization that they work for. That becomes an imperative in business. The other one that I wanted to mention is, in business, leaders also have to encourage even more of our women. Yes, we are now at 32% in Ghana. Yes, in Canada, maybe women-owned businesses is now trending about maybe 46%. But what is important is, what's stopping us from even overtaking the males? And I know anytime I say things like that, people say, oh, but Dr. Olu, you are too ambitious. Even take it slow from where you're coming from. We don't need to take it slow, actually. If we have the capacity, I think we need to take it a notch higher. As long as the men are supportive, they would actually see the value in us that we're contributing and putting on the table. Which man does not like a woman that is able to, to positively impact their businesses, the businesses and the workplace where they found them? Everybody wants somebody adding value to them, and women have a lot of value to give. And that's why we must encourage them to start from where they are and to take it a notch higher. This is important, whether in the workplace or in the marketplace. For business leaders in the room today, whether you're a woman or whether you're a male, it is important that you create sectoral ecosystems for women to thrive. You need to encourage entrepreneurship, encourage people to create initiatives within the organization as intrapreneurs. What's your own initiative? How do you reward the initiative that people are creating within the workplace? And how are you encouraging the small businesses springing up around you? Or when people come to you and say they have this idea or that idea, how do you encourage those ideas? As long as those ideas are not limiting or going to jeopardize the activities of your organization, it is important that we continue to advocate for women and encourage women and set expectations for them, that you actually expect them to have their own ideas, concepts, and develop them. Thirdly, for women leaders in the room today, I wanted to say, and I know that Madam Edwina alluded to the fact that, yes, we had a great event yesterday. She was there. It was amazing. Thank you for that. The question came up again yesterday, that women, are they really supportive of themselves? So I just wanted to leave that thought with you. How are you helping other women within your space? Are you promoting them? Are you making them visible? Or are you trying to stunt their growth? Are you trying to push them back because you think that if their talents are discovered, they are perhaps going to, kind of compete with you? Women leaders in the room today, the goal of us all is to ensure that we raise up women that can complement our efforts. You discover they have the talent you need, you make sure you raise them up. You discover that they have potential, you mentor them. Of course, you can set the rules of the game. Of course, you can sponsor them. Of course, you can cheer them up. Cheering women up and motivating and encouraging other women around you. It doesn't take anything away from you. It doesn't stop your own growth. It doesn't take away from you. It actually adds to you because it shows and indicates that you're a great leader yourself and that you actually understand what leadership means in terms of propping up other people and making sure they find their dreams. And they're not just finding their dreams. They're actually using the dreams that they have to affect and impact other people. All right. So this is my little sense to women leaders in the room today. And for other women looking to start or grow in their career, or to start a business, or to scale their businesses, or to improve their careers, I have a few pieces too here. Perhaps you want to identify who your role model stereotype will be and what you can gain from such people. But it shouldn't only be limited to what you can gain from such role models. Who is your typical mentor? What do you expect to find in a mentor? Who can sponsor you? What do you expect to find in them? Then you also need to identify the value that you have that you can actually give to such people. Keep in mind, value gravitates towards value. So it's important that you also have some value to give when you are identifying such people. So seek out such role models, people that have been where you want to be. That's where you're heading to. That's what you think you want to do. Identify them, give some value to them. They will open up to you in good time. The response time might be slow from one person to the other because a lot of people are challenged and, like solving a lot of issues themselves with other people for themselves and so on. So the response might be slow. Some may not even respond to you at all. That's why it's important to identify a set of people, 1, 2, 3, 4. At the end of the day, like I share my examples from time to time, I never look for one person. I always look for 3. If I need one item, I look for 10, because at the end of the day, if 5 people don't answer, 1, 2, 3 will answer. And then I will have options to choose the best out of those. And sometimes, even the best of the best, sometimes you need to also weigh it and keep some other people. Always build bridges. Always have a reserve, because you won't run out if you always have some reserve. People that have your back. That's what I mean by that. All right. So as I wrap up on this momentous occasion, let there be no doubt for all the women in the room and the males that are supporting us today, as we embark on life's journey, that time is always of essence. And I think the theme for International Women's Day came from that. That time is of essence for women. That time is critical. And that time is really important for us to quickly begin to achieve what we need to achieve. The actions we take today will shape our world tomorrow. Strategic alliances are important. They matter. It's important. They are key to our growth. They are key to our success. And so we need to keep asking ourselves, how are we building the relationships? Who are our allies? Are we advancing them? Are we building relationships with them? Are we maintaining the relationships we're supposed to have with them? Are they able to support us? Or are we weakening those relationships by our sheer inaction, or maybe even some of the negative actions? So we need to keep asking ourselves. It's always better to be on the bridge building side. So let's keep building bridges, because the way we build bridges is when we also amplify the voices of the people around us. I close with this today. Two of my favorite virtual mentors, I call them virtual mentors. Maya Angelou, who says, if you do not like something, change it. If you can't change it, what you don't like, change your attitude towards it. If you can change your attitude towards it, find other people who can help you to do so. And Barack Obama also reminds us that we ourselves are the change that we have been waiting for. And the time to act is right now. So a lot of people say, I'm waiting for the right time. I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for that. We are the change that we've been looking for. And right now is the time to act. For all the women in the room today, I say to you again, thank you for your unwavering support, your commitment to empowering yourselves, and then to empowering other community members and women in your space. Thank you again for your leadership, and at Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, thank you again for your leadership. I really appreciate your invitation this afternoon. It's now afternoon in Canada. Thank you. Thank you again for your attention. And that brings me to the end of this speech.
Oh,
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Oyelade. Honestly, if you were in a room right now, I'm sure the applause will be so loud. It would be deafening. You shared so many insights, and I was just sometimes I couldn't even finish my notes, and then you just bring up some other powerful point. And I can say for a fact and for certain that you are the best person for this International Women's Day webinar. We couldn't have asked for a better speaker today. So thank you so much. There are so many congratulatory messages and appreciative messages in the chat. My name is Kayla, your moderator for today. If you have more questions, kindly put them in the chat. And for those of you who would like to unmute as well, just keep your hands up and I will buzz you in. And so before they come in, I just want to say thank you again to the Chamber for organizing this. I've been beaming with smiles the whole time that you've been speaking. And a lot of things just resonate so much. So before the questions come in and I read them to you, I have a few of my own, and I'm so excited to hear what you have to say to that. And I'd like to start from the bottom because I have about like 8 points that I was just like, oh my God, you are so on point with this for me. The first one happens to be with role models. So I remember a few years ago when I set out to like pick my role models, I had about 10 in mind. And I intentionally had that 10 because some had specific qualities I wanted to learn from. Some you could see from scale, some you could see from marketing, the approach to business and people. And I was so bummed when I sent messages to them, especially on LinkedIn, and I don't hear from them like, oh, did I say something wrong? Are they too busy? And then one thing came to mind. You can always find a mentor and learn from what they are doing, not necessarily like, needing to hear from them directly. So my question here is, when women as women, this is sometimes a confidence problem. When we bump into such challenges, how do we navigate that in finding such role models that can lead us to finding our career paths?
Absolutely. Thank you again. Thank you so much for the question. It's a tough job sometimes. I must tell you, it's no ordinary job, because keep in mind again that you're looking for somebody that you can you want to share, some of your deep thoughts with, career-wise, business-wise, and so on. So it's got to be somebody well, carefully selected, and the first answer I would give is role models. They don't you don't need to necessarily have one. Remember, again, I think I alluded to that. So a lot of people are looking for one person. It doesn't have to be. It could actually be 2, 3 people, particularly if you're in a particular sector, if you're an SME, you're in business, or you're in career. So you could actually have that role model, or whether you want to call that person a mentor too, and so on. Of course, there are differences, it's not the same, you know what I mean? But anyway, let's even start with mentorship. So you have somebody and you are in accounting. I'm not sure where you are, but you perhaps want to have one who is an accountant, because a person is actually in your line of business or line of career. And so he already has done, or she already has done some of the things that you do, or you're looking to do or achieve. And so you're looking for such people. And like I mentioned, 1, 2, 3, 4, identify them. How do you? What have they done? What have they accomplished? Where are they? And so on and so forth. So it's one of the ways to quickly do that and then identify them. Now you write them, they don't respond, then you go back again. That's why we're women. A lot of women, I'm sure you understand. It's just the natural order of things for women to keep trying. Don't you think so? Otherwise, the pain of childbirth will not allow you to go back again to that way of play. If you're interested in in children, because not everybody wants them. But the thing is, a lot of people wouldn't even try it again. But the natural order of things is we keep trying things, we keep making amends, we keep making peace. Because peace must reign. That's the way we were made. And that's why a no should not be a closed door for you. A no should actually be an opportunity to go back to the drawing board and say, all right, these guys are busy. Make excuses for people. If you're going to make progress in life, you also have to make excuses, because truly, you do not know what those people are going through, or maybe they didn't even see it, or maybe they're too busy indeed, or truly maybe there's no alignment. And that's why it could be any reason. Make excuses for them. Go back. Try other people. It's important to keep trying. You never give up. Role models. And so that's how you choose them. After a while, somebody will say yes. Don't worry. You just keep trying. Then remember again, in career, you need to have one and you need to have others, not just one.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. That is really, really on point. I have a few questions, but I also want to go into the chat briefly to just read out a few of the comments that we have here. And I'll select randomly. Okay, this is from Kinsey Wahineba. I believe Kinsey is in Ghana. So Kinsey says, commendable and thoughtful on cheering women up, encouraging and motivating women business owners and women in business entities and companies to initiate, develop, and own impactful and profitable initiatives. Now, this comes to my next question to you. When you made a reference to about just 3% of the population in Ghana, being women-led, I also quite remember a few years ago, I was also researching, I can't quite remember the name of the paper, but then it showed that women really don't go back to the board asking for more money, and we are less prone to asking for huge amount of resources, and everything boils down to confidence. When we get so many no's, but men have the stamina to withstand the no's all the time, and so in that research, it showed that men tend to always get more resources and the support because they are so they can withstand the no's and the rejection. That's the word. They can withstand the rejection. And so therefore you find more men in the room than women. Once we get no, we retreat. So I think this is a 2-in-1 question. Is this a fundamental problem from the home, or do you think it's more about the environmental impact as we go in our different career paths?
All right, thank you again. That's a natural thing again with women, like I would say. whatever the color, whatever, women are just, you see, women are communal. Women are communal in nature. Women being communal in nature means they like to build consensus. They like the yes. They are not men are men are agentic. You know what I mean? Like they are like not dictators. You know what I mean? Authoritarians and so on. So women are communal. They build consensus. They prefer collaboration and all of that. It's just our natural. It's the way God made us. Is what I wanted to say. Because of that, they need the approval of maybe a man, you know what I mean? That's what I mean by communal, a child and so on, or friends. So we're like that. Men are, they're emotional too, but they're not like women. So that's what you mean by when you say the men can take it more. But the women, once they feel rejected, they kind of withdraw into their shell. Very few will now say, I'm going back. I'm not. And the going back, the people that say I'm going back, a lot of people say, oh, it's because they're ambitious and so on. Yeah, maybe. But sometimes it's the training. You got to train yourself. You got to find people who can train you to become that way. Sometimes it's not inherited. Half of the time it's not inherited. Half of the time it comes from training because somebody gave you an opportunity to manage something. So you know that you can't afford to fail because the person has been pumping it into you. So you gain it, you begin to grow into that persona, so that's the way women can grow. And then they can now, I like to call it, they can now develop what you call their own marketplace or workplace. Thick skin. I call it a thick skin, meaning no matter how they criticize you, no matter how many no's they say to you, you've developed what you call your own marketplace or workplace, thick skin. So that's how I manage it in my own person, just to let you know. That's it. We apply for so many things, whether it's a grant, whether it's a loan for the businesses we're doing. We hear so many no's, but we never stop. Immediately they announce the next one. Oh, there's a mission here. They're going on a mission visit to China or to this. Sometimes, even as long as we haven't even done the thing, we're exploring the opportunity. We don't even have a business in China anyway, but we're researching into it to say we will go if the opportunity comes. Do you understand what I mean? Why should you do that? Because perhaps there might be opportunities in that for you. So women have to grow and develop their own marketplace thick skin. Because if you remember, that's why I said women are communal, men are agentic. Because if a man says, I'm doing this, everybody applauds. They get applauded. They move forward. If a woman says, I'm going to do the same thing sometimes, they say she's too ambitious. Oh, where did she leave her family? She's supposed to sit down at home and take care of the family and so on. Do you understand what I mean? But if you look at the people we cited earlier on today, the Ochoyo and so on, that's where they started. How could a woman think like that in Ghana and say, these challenges and the gaps have been there. I'm going to address the issue of processing food, of micro-lending, and so on. So we've got to put on the hat that we're solution providers. Once you put on that hat and you see yourself as a solution provider, the grace will come upon you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have another question from the chat. And this is from Marie Kate Amate-Phil. I believe she's also from Ghana. So I'll go ahead and read her question. She says, you mentioned that we must support each other so that other women can set out their comfort zones and rise, especially in the business environment. And Marie says that she's realized that sometimes the issue isn't necessarily the business environment itself, but rather the environment these women have found themselves to have grown up in and become accustomed to. So it often stems from the education that we women have received, which might have focused more on receiving rather than challenging or questioning things. At times, it's difficult to encourage them to embrace new challenges that could help them grow both professionally and personally. So Marie's question at the end of this says, what advice would you offer to these women?
Education. Education. The more we get trained, whether it's locally or internationally, the better people will become. Education is so critical because then, depending on what the gaps are, if there are people who can actually put together the kind of programs that would actually help some of these types of women she described, help them, empower them, and emancipation becomes possible, like freedom, like you see that you can do so many other things. But if you don't know what is available in the ecosystem, opportunities, resources, you are not even desirous of a change until you know what is available. So sometimes a lot of people, yes, were groomed there, were educated there. Most of us were, right? Most of us were actually. So, but then you see that because somebody comes into the room, you attended a workshop, or you were listening to a podcast or something, and you suddenly hear about opportunities here and there. If you are truly, you really want to advance yourself or your business or in the workplace, you will pay attention to that. They say it's possible. And they say somebody's training and it's going to cost you maybe $50 or $100. A lot of women will take advantage of that if it is really convenient. I remember I talked about the family issues also, like, concentrating on a lot of the domestic issues. So that's one of the major limiting factors too for women. But if you really want to truly advance, you pay attention to that education. Who are you listening to? Where are you getting educated? It's a tech world today. Everybody is getting some certificate in technology, in this, in digital, in AI. We've been hearing about that. A lot of people are now registering for things like that so that they can actually improve themselves and take advantage of the opportunities. So education is really critical. Wherever we go, education is important, whether we're within Ghana, in Canada, or in the neighboring West African states. What you know, nobody can take it away from you. And the more you get educated, and you are now able to apply what you have learned to the industry you're looking to get into, the better person you become. The better person you become. It was only until I didn't get a doctorate, PhD, doctorate degree until I got into this Canada. And that was just shy of 10 years ago. But I really wanted to understand the terrain. That's why I went for it. It was one of the best things that I did, because staying there for 3 years helped me to understand how people think. Education, how do they think? What are the norms? So for a lot of people who have traveled far and wide, they hear about all these issues of racism, sexism. I call them the isms now because now I teach. So I call them these several isms: racism, sexism, ageism, nepotism, favoritism. We just ism. So they say racism. I say, why is this racism thing so popular? Now I'm saying this to you because I'm in Ghana, Canadian environment, and I say it everywhere where I teach or whatever. I never had anybody racist to me. Nobody was racist to me because I'm originally from Nigeria. We're all Black people. So when they say racist, I say, what are you guys? I don't understand this racism you're talking about. Now, that's not to trivialize racism. It exists, okay? So that's not to trivialize it. It exists. I know. But I didn't understand it because nobody was ever racist to me. But when I got into class, then I started understanding it. Because anytime I wanted to say something and somebody said something, because of my mother's teaching from home, they're looking at me, then I look back at them. You can't give me a look. I came here, I paid my fees, I was taught. You can't be racist to me because you paid and I paid and I have to speak. That's the training we were given. You understand what I mean? So if anybody is not trying to be racist and they say my name in one funny name, I know that it's because they don't know how to pronounce it. So these are some of the ways these things work. So that confidence comes, part of it comes from a classroom. When you submit yourself to either mentorship or tutelage of the people that understand the system, you come out of those programs and you're fired up because you've learned something new. So whether it's a small workshop or a 6-month training, I highly encourage people like that to take on that challenge and become better people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I believe there is I mean, we could go on and on because this is a very sensitive topic, and we could go on for 2 hours. But I'd like to ask the final question from the chat, and then we would move straight to our closing remarks. So this one is from Albertina Gohoho. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. Apologies. You have a very powerful question, and I believe that this would be an excellent way to end our Q&A session today with Dr. Oyelade. Albertina says, bravo, Dr. Oyelade. It's a pleasure listening to you. I am Albertina, Marketing Director at Mutech Media. And her question is, beyond investments, how can we media highlight the lasting impact of Canadian-Ghanaian partnerships on gender equality and women's empowerment? So that's the first question. And her last one says, what storytelling and matrix best showcases their social and economic benefits, emphasizing women as key drivers of change? So that's your last question from Albertina.
Okay. All right, thank you again for that. So she talked about lasting impact on how women can make a lasting impact in the, can you repeat the first part of that question?
Yeah, sure. So her first question is, beyond investment, how can we, as in her, because she's in the media space, so beyond investment, how can they as media change makers highlight lasting impact of Canadian-Ghanaian partnerships on gender equality and women empowerment?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Right. This is really important because storytelling is not just a form of education. It is a major form of education because you learn from people. It's a major form of advertisement, showcasing, like spotlighting the accomplishments of other people. And so that becomes a major opportunity for us because people draw references or inferences